Yeah.
So the Tigers are the one that's surprising most, and I didn't think they'd be where they are right now, so I have to eat my words in relation to that. What Damien Hardwick's done, full credit to him, he's looked at the territory game, get their strength around the footy. They had to get Prestia and Caddy into the team to get some more midfield depth. But obviously a lot of those rotations are centre forward. Dusty, Trent spend a lot of time forward of the ball. Caddy goes to the goal square at times. But he said, well, if we're going to win the territory battle, we need speed to keep it in there. And the inclusions of some of their three smaller types into that forward to complement Jack and another tall if they use one, it's just giving them an incredible opportunity to set up the ground defensively, not let it out, and you're getting returns and you're getting repeats. And that's what they've done really well. They didn't have that manic forward 50 pressure last year. They addressed an issue that they had to get right. They've got that right this year, and quite clearly they're a different team because of it. And let's face it, they could have won another 3 games if it wasn't on the back of some poor decisions.
It's probably I'm laughing, but it's a positive aspect in their form,
defeat,
if
absolutely.
you like, that they've played a lot of close games. That experience, I suppose, will give them, they can use that if they get to the final.
And when you look at their list profile and games played, there's a lot of those young players who haven't been exposed to that type of pressure. That's the valuable learning of AFL footy. Experience it and then learn from that. Some would say they didn't learn on the back of a 7-day cycle because they lost 2 post games on the back of a 7-day break. But in saying that, the more you get exposed to that with younger players, to that type of decision-making structure, what decision to make at the really important point of the game is what they'll live by going forward. And they're a really good team at the moment. They're very complete.
And that's a prime example of what we're talking about, because the easiest thing in the world for them last year could have been to sack Damien Hardwick.
Oh, absolutely.
Under the pressure.
Yeah.
And they said, no, he's a good coach, we've got good structure, but we need to make a couple of list changes, and we need to change slightly the way we play. And they've done both. So sometimes the easiest decision is the worst decision.
Yeah, and I've never been one to subscribe to just let's sack a coach.
Yeah.
There's more to it, and it's a bit like the Buckley discussion at Collingwood right now. I've had the media ring me probably once a week over the last 8 weeks about what my thoughts are in relation to should they sack Buckley. I'm seeing they're doing a lot right. Now, if we talk about KPIs in a game, the first and most important thing, can they win it?
Yeah.
Now, they're ranked 3 or 4 in terms of possessions won for the year right now.
Yeah.
Secondly, how do they win it? Now, they're winning it in terms of contested ball and clearance in the top 3 or 4 in the competition right now.
And that equates to desire for the contest, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an intent to win their own footy. And that, to me, has always stood tall in AFL footy, but also in pressure games of footy and finals footy, most importantly. So I think the template there is right. What they're actually not doing as best as a Geelong or an Adelaide Crows or a GWS at the moment is their inside 50 efficiency. And let's face it, they've got a lot of young players. They had no Elliott for huge parts of the early start of the season. We saw over the last month how important he is. Darcy Moore's work in progress, and clearly with that ruck relief role that he's been given, he's more involved in the contest in the 2 hours. So I think that's been a masterstroke and a tick. And at the other end of the ground, when you look at what he's had over the last 2 years, he's had no continuity with his back 6 players. I think last year in the first 6 or 7 rounds, by memory, there's about 14 to 16 players used in that part of the ground because of injury or lack of continuity. Ben Reed's out of the team at the moment. He's one that'll come in.
Yeah.
So the more continuity these boys get to play together, we'll get results like they had on the weekend against Fremantle on the road, which is not easy to do.
It seems like, from an outsider's perspective, it feels like the pressure's come off them a bit now. Like the pressure just kept building and building and building until it just completely surfaced in the first quarter against Hawthorn, and it sort of got to a point where they all just went, fuck it.
Well,
let's just get on with it now.
That goes back to Ralphie's point earlier about the overreaction on the back of a loss. But sometimes I reckon journalists, I'm critical of them in the view that they don't probably drill down as to the why. They look at the outcome and just say, there's another loss, Collingwood must be no good, or Buckley's fault. As opposed to looking at the components of the game they got right. Now, what are the aspects of the game they've got to get better at? And I reckon they're still work in progress on a couple of fronts, but the core root cause as to why you become successful in AFL footy is touch on can you win it, how you win it, and what you do with it. And if they marry up those 3 areas right, they're going to be hard to beat. They can play finals footy. This Monday against the Demons is a game, as a player, you'd want to put your hand up and play in. Both clubs need a win to keep their top 8 aspirations alive. And there was a little bit of a banter between, there was an ABC interview post-event last night, and Taylor Adams there was a question about Lyndon Dunn, and said, he's at a real footy club, a club now that because he hasn't had real success at the previous club. I'm tipping the Melbourne Voices will be very supporters in that now, in the view that there's a little bit of GST on that type of game now.
Because we'll have a lot of Sydney punters watching this because of the pots and the fact that horse racing is not as regional. People want to bet on Melbourne racing all over the country and vice versa with Sydney. So the Sydney people don't get Eddie McGuane, and Melbourne people know how he runs it, and I've seen the best and worst of him, and I love him, and he changed my life, and you know him well. When Collingwood were under the pump, and Ed did the big backs to the wall speech, that's very important for a club then, and for Bucks to know that your president's got your back and to tell everyone else to shut up about, as you said, about the noise outside the four walls.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And it's easy to get caught up in the external talk if you allow it to.
Yeah.
You've got to be mentally strong to play AFL footy and survive it. And a lot of people get seduced by what other people think about them, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
Some people in the industry have really got thin skins. And you've just got to be mentally and physically tough to play and survive this game of footy and not worry about the external noise.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, I must say. The biggest issue right now is the mental health issue in AFL footy, and I've got no doubt there's more guys struggling with it than the Alex Vasolo who put his hand up last week, and we certainly sympathise and have compassion for him, but great courage too to bring himself up in front of the hordes of people to say this infallible AFL footballer has got mental health issues. Surely getting paid $400,000 or $500,000 a year, how can you have those issues? But the actual psyche of the player, because of the pressures that go with it, not everyone's wired the same. So we've got to understand that there are people that are fallible, and we've got to support them the best we can.
And so someone like Ed coming out and being so noisy in behalf of Nathan Buckley, that's important for the rest of them. Don't worry about what everyone else is saying. We're with you, and that's that situation. While you're adding to the noise in a way, you're also subduing it.
Well, I've always felt, Ralphie, as you know, you need strong administration. And I've always subscribed to what Lee Matthews taught us for 10 or 12 years when he coached us. His simple philosophy was administrators administrate, coaches coach, and players play. There shouldn't be any overlay of your portfolio interfering with others. There's board meetings for a reason. Now, if there's an issue with a coach because of a breakdown in communication to players, hence the performance is suffering, that's when the coach gets called in before the firing squad and they chew the fat. But as soon as you get administrators think this is the way the game should be played, or the style of play is poor, or the players aren't listening to their coach,
there should be sirens in clubs. As soon as you get any hanger-oners coming in with that type of advice, they should start going off.
Absolutely.
Put this man in a straitjacket right now. Get him out of here.
It's the courageous one that doesn't need to be heard in that situation. It takes courage not to speak when you don't have to. Some people open up their mouth just for the sake of opening up their mouth. I've always felt you've got two ears. You're always going to be twice a good listener than what you are a speaker, so use them. And in AFL footy, because we get inundated with the Herald Sun or Channel 7, they've all got a magnificent role to play, and we understand that. But sometimes they just shoot off at the hip far too early, and they're always backtracking on what they said on the back of a side who probably had Nathan Buckley sacked 3 weeks ago. He's won his next 3.
He's a genius.
But is there any positive affirmation on what he's done? No. So we're in an industry that's always revolving around bad news or sad news, not good news.
Good call.
That's good stuff, mate. So just final word on footy before we go. Ralphie's a long-term Melbourne supporter. I'm a recent acquisition to the Melbourne supporter group. Are we any chance?
Absolute to win this Monday, or to play
to win this Monday, to play finals, and what can happen if
are we doing that?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. I think Goody at times, and the Gold Coast game was a great example. They were totally had their backs to the wall against the Gold Coast Suns on the road.
In Alice.
And I thought Goodwin sort of shuffling the deck chairs, putting 2, 3, maybe 4 players behind the ball, to create some chaos on the spit. We call it the spitter. When you're spitting forward, they got so many marks uncontested in their forward 50 on the back of the inexperienced Gold Coast boys not referencing the most dangerous player. And I thought that was a masterstroke to roll the dice, to invent something different that very rarely is seen. We might see a +1 back, we might see a +2, but 3 or 4. That's different territory for most opposition defenders, because you look up the ground and you say, Ralphie, watch him on the fly. Potts, catch him on the fly. He's mine. But when the ball's in motion, the worst form of defence is ball watching. And as soon as you gravitate your footy and you've got an offside slider getting behind your back who gets a mark unmanned in space, that's when you're in trouble. And I thought that was great coaching. So when you've got a bloke with initiative like that, Yes, you are a chance. And the game on Monday is, to be honest, I reckon it's season defining for both clubs, and that's when you want to play it. It's at its hottest, and we'll see two clubs go hell for leather.
Well, a few weeks back, a good friend of the show, Rexy, invited Ralph and I to. Rexy's a mad North Melbourne supporter, has been since he's a little boy.
Yep.
The North versus Melbourne.
Yep.
And Rexy's Kangaroos got the cash.
Yep.
But they were pathetic on the weekend, Rexy, so we're not talking about them. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, boys. See ya.